Hi children, this is continuation of second lesson in geography. The second lesson is the natural dreams of the earth. Till now, so far we have learnt in this lesson what are the four natural dreams of the earth: lithosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere and biosphere. And also we learnt about the three types of landforms, that is first order landforms, second order landforms and third order landforms. And we learnt about plate tectonics, and we also learnt about the slow movements and the sudden movements of the earth. Slow movements are plate tectonics and the sudden movements are volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. And in the last we also learnt about the Pacific Ring of Fire. What is Pacific Ring of Fire? And the four processes through which different landforms are formed on the surface of the earth, that is weathering, erosion, transportation and deposition. This is what we learned so far. Now I am going to continue the lesson. Now we are going to see how the action of water forms different forms of landforms. Now we are going to learn how the third order landforms are formed. Different third order landforms like canyons, gorges, V-shaped valleys, U-shaped valleys, these are all third order landforms. And to start with, let me repeat the definition of third order landforms. Third order landforms are formed by the action of wind or water or glaciers. And now we are going to learn how these different forms of landforms are formed due to the action of water. Now, the first one is V-shaped valleys. V-shaped valleys are formed due to the work of water. Due to the action of force of water, these V-shaped valleys are formed. As you know, all the rivers originate from the mountains. And when they originate from the mountains, they have to cross the mountain and then enter into the plain. And while crossing the mountain, they have to descend down steep slopes. And at that time, it will have great force. The river water will have great force when it is descending down the mountain and entering into the plains. So due to this force of the water, the river cuts the mountain in V-shaped valleys. That means it cuts the mountain in V-shape, forming V-shaped valleys. The bottom will be narrow and the top will be wider. Such valleys are formed due to the action of water. And that is why, because they are in V-shaped, they are called as V-shaped valleys. That means V-shaped valleys are narrow at the bottom and wider at the top. And after crossing the mountain, it has to enter into the plains. Now we'll see another type of valleys, that are canyons. Canyons are also narrow valleys which are formed due to the action of river. Actually, canyons are characterized by steep like side slopes and they are also as deep as gorges. And when the river or its tributaries, they cut the mountain and the narrow valleys are formed. These valleys are narrow at the bottom and wider at the top. And these are characterized by steep like side slopes and deep as gorges. And these are called canyons. For example, the biggest canyon in the world is on the river Colorado. You can see in the figure, the blue part is canyon. And on both sides of it, there are steep side slopes. Now, the biggest canyon in the world is on the river Colorado. Colorado is a river in USA. The Grand Canyon of Colorado, it is called as the Grand Canyon of Colorado. It is in USA and it is 466 kilometers in length. Its depth is 1.6 kilometers and width is 188 meters to 29 kilometers. This is the biggest canyon in the world, the Grand Canyon of Colorado. Now, the next one is gorges. Sometimes where the rocks are very hard, the river cuts a very narrow valley, and this valley is equal at the bottom and the top also, just like a reservoir or a tank. The top and bottom both are equal. Such valleys are called gorges. For example, Bison Gorge in AP on Godavari River and Indus Gorge in Kashmir. These are two examples of gorges. These gorges are equal at the top and the bottom also, and these are suitable for construction of reservoirs. Gorges are best suitable for construction of reservoirs. Now let us see why they are suitable for construction of reservoirs. The natural valleys formed by the gorges are built up with hard rock. The valleys with its steep sides, extensive rocky floors form the natural reservoirs for the dams. These rivers and tributaries, they form natural valleys, and these natural valleys have steep sides and extensive rocky floors also, so it forms the natural reservoir for the dam. We need not construct it again. So constructing the dams at gorges is less expensive because a little concrete work is needed to form the reservoirs. In these vast and massive reservoirs, a lot of water can be stored. And the third reason is gorges are flood proof. They prevent floods. The waterfalls that falls down from great heights into the gorges can rotate large turbines and generate hydroelectricity also in large quantities. These are the advantages of gorges. That is why gorges are best suitable for construction of dams or reservoirs. And the next one is plunge pool. The water falls with great force. When it falls from a great height, it falls with great force, and when it has great force, it can cut the rocks, it can dig out the rocks beneath it. If you have gone to Tirupati, you might have seen Papanasanam. Near Papanasanam, you can see the water falls from a great height, and down you can see many plunge pools. The water which is falling with great force, it cuts the rock or digs the rock beneath and forms into plunge pools. And the next one is the next landform formed due to the action of water is floodplains. Floodplains and meanders. Now let us see what are these floodplains and how they are formed. When the river enters the plain, the slope is very gentle because first it descends down the mountains, then it has great force. But when it enters into the plains, it has gentle slope, so the river slows down. It has no force at that time. It just flows without any force. Now, it does not have the force to carry heavy particles and deposits. As you know, the rivers always carry sediments and silt along with them. So, these deposits cannot be carried by the river in the plains because they don't have much force on the plains. So, the river deposits these silt or sediments or particles which it carries on its banks or on its bed. And sometimes when the river is in flood, it has greater force and cuts the soil, and when it is not in flood, it deposits silt. Like that, layer after layer, the river deposits the silt and sediments and forms into a floodplain. And this is how many floodplains like the Ganga plain, Krishna Godavari plain, Indus plain, all these are formed in this way only. And when the river water comes again, I told you it deposits silt and sediments layer after layer. And when the river water again comes, this deposit of silt and sediments may obstruct the path of the river. So it has to change its course. It has to change its course. And the river has to change its course, and that is why the gentle turns like a snake taken by the river in its flood plain are called as meanders. You can see in the picture, the first picture is floodplains and the second picture is meanders. You can see the snake-like turns taken by a river, and that is called as meanders. And due to deposition along, now the meanders are formed. Meanders are snake-like turns taken by a river in its floodplain. And on both sides of the meander, meander loops you can see here in this picture, green picture. Due to the deposition along the sides of the meander, the ends of meander loop come closer and closer. The river flows and continuously it brings silt and sediments and gets deposited at the ends of the meander loops. And when this continues for many years, both the ends of the meander loops come closer and closer, and one day they get separated from the main river and they form into oxbow lakes. When they get separated from the main river, then it forms into a oxbow lake. Now, next one is delta. After forming into oxbow lake, when a river reaches the sea, it carries silt and sediments along with it. And then before joining the sea, it deposits the silt and sediments at the mouth of the river, forming a delta. The word delta is originated from the Greek alphabet delta, which looks like a triangle, and that is why it is named as delta. It is the most fertile part of the plain, because before joining the sea, the river leaves all the material, sediments, silt, whatever it brings with it, that is deposited in the mouth, at the mouth of the river, and that is called as delta. Now, next one is the work of glaciers. Due to the action of glaciers, what are the landforms that are formed? You can see in the picture that is U-shaped valleys. U-shaped valleys are formed due to the action of glaciers. Now let us see how these are formed. In very cold regions like Himalayas, we get rainfall here, but in cold regions like Himalayas, they get snowfall. And this snow accumulates and hardens into ice. When it gets accumulated, it hardens into ice. And as it accumulates, it flows slowly down till it reaches warm area where the ice melts and a small river starts. That means this slow movement of mass of ice is called glacier. The snow gets hardened and then it forms into ice, and this slow moving of ice, this moves slowly. And this slow movement of mass of ice is called glacier. The movement of glacier is very slow, unlike water flow. Water flows with great force, but glacier's movement is very slow. The movement would be a few centimeters per day or even less or more. It can be. So glaciers move basically because of the force of gravity. Because of Earth's gravity, the glaciers move, and when they move, they collect all the debris from the surrounding rocks. And when it moves through the rocks, it erodes through a process called plucking and abrasion. Through these two processes, plucking and abrasion, the glacier erodes the rocks and it forms into U-shaped valleys. Now let us see what is this plucking. A glacier erodes through a process called plucking, in which it lifts pieces of rock and transports them. It is passing by the rocks, and when it passes by the rocks, it collects small pieces of rocks and transports them along with it. And these pieces of rock and the moving ice together, these pieces of rock, they stick to the glacier. And when it is moving further, it acts like a sandpaper on the surface of the rocks over which it is flowing. Do you know sandpaper? Sandpaper is used by a carpenter to make smooth the surface of the furniture. That is called as sandpaper. So this glacier, along with the particles of rock stuck to it, it acts like a sandpaper on the surrounding rocks and erodes them. And glacier acts as an abrasive and erodes the bedrock. So it is the process of abrasion. So plucking and abrasion. Plucking means the glacier collects the pieces of rocks, particles of rocks from the surrounding mountains, and then when these particles stick to the glacier, it acts as a sandpaper and erodes the rocks. So plucking and abrasion, through these processes, two processes, the glaciers form U-shaped valleys. You can see in the picture, it is in U shape. And now as the glaciers melts, as it is moving, it starts melting and it becomes water. It does not have the force to carry these particles of rock or anything, big rocks or large rocks. Otherwise it carries very big rocks also. So it leaves them behind. When it is not able to carry these big rocks, it leaves them behind in the form of rugged boulders. And smaller particles and other sand and everything, it sticks to the glacier in different parts of the glacier. And all this debris, it is known as till. And the till which cannot be carried by a glacier is deposited at various parts of the glacier. And the deposition of this till is called as moraines. Now, the work of sea waves. What are the different landforms formed due to the work of sea waves? Now, sea waves, the erosion and deposition by the sea waves gives rise to coastal landforms that are sea caves, sea arches, stakes and sea cliff. These are the four types of landforms which are formed due to the work of sea waves. As you know, the sea waves, suppose there is a big rock, the sea waves continuously strike at the rocks, and when they continuously, day and night, they are struck by the sea waves, cracks develop in those rocks. After many years or after many days or after many years, cracks develop in those rocks and gradually hollow-like caves are formed on the rocks. You can see the first picture, that is sea caves. Hollow-like caves are formed and it looks like a cave, you can see. So these are called as sea caves. That means due to the continuous strike at the rocks by the sea waves, sea caves are formed. And when these sea caves are further eroded by the sea waves, again the sea waves are continuously striking at the sea caves also. Then what happens? Only the arches will be remaining. You can see the second picture. Only like sea arch it is remaining. The remaining part has been eroded by the sea waves. So these are called sea arches. When sea caves are further eroded, they form into sea arches. Only wall-like construction is left over, so it forms like a sea arch. And further erosion breaks the roof and only walls are left. If further erosion takes place, the sea waves will be continuously striking the sea arches also. Then what happens? That arch will also be eroded and only a wall-like rock will be left over. So further erosion breaks the roof and only walls are left, and these walls are called stakes. You can see the third picture, that is stakes. And the steep rocky coast rising almost vertically above seawater is called sea cliff. That is the fourth picture you can see. It is called as sea cliff. A steep rocky coast rising almost vertically above seawater is called sea cliff. And when sea cliffs are further eroded, suppose this sea cliff is again continuously struck by the sea waves. It is further eroded by the sea waves. It forms into cape or bay. What is this cape and bay? A cape is headland cutting out into the sea. For example, Cape Comorin in India. Cape Comorin means it is Kanyakumari. It is the other name of Kanyakumari. Cape Comorin and Cape of Good Hope in Africa. These are examples for cape. A cape is a headland cutting out into the sea. And what is bay? A bay is wide-mouthed recess in the line of the coast. For example, Bay of Bengal, Hudson Bay, these are all examples for bays. And the sea waves deposit sediments along the shores which forms into sea beaches. And this is how the sea beaches are formed. The sea waves, when they come to the shore, they bring sediment deposits along with them and they deposit these sediments along the shores and these form into the sea beaches. Now, the work of wind. Till now we saw how the action of water creates different types of landforms or the action of water on lithosphere. Now we are going to see the action of atmosphere on the lithosphere. Atmosphere means the action of winds. What are the landforms formed due to the action of winds? About 1/5 of the world's land is made up of deserts. And some are rocky and others are stony, whereas others are sandy. Now, strong winds carry sand and fine soil which strike the large rocks. Strong winds carry sand and fine soil, and these again strike the large rocks and erode them. And these two together, they act as abrasive, like sandpaper. I told you just now. These two act as abrasive sandpaper and erode the hard rocks. Now let us see how mushroom rocks are formed due to the action of winds. The winds erode the lower part of the rocks more and more, and therefore such rocks are narrower at the bottom and wider at the top, taking the shape of a mushroom. So they are called as mushroom rocks. Inselbergs. Inselbergs, you can see rounded top. You can see in the picture, rounded top. The isolated residual hills rising abruptly from the ground are called inselbergs. What are residual hills? Residual hills means when big mountains are eroded due to the action of wind or water, they become lesser in height. Those are called as hills. The residual hills means the remaining part of the hills. The isolated residual hills rising abruptly from the ground are called inselbergs or island mountain. And these inselbergs are characterized by their very steep slopes and rounded tops. You can see rounded top is there, steep slopes are there. That is inselberg. Now sand dunes and loess plains. What are sand dunes? It is also due to the action of wind only. Sand dunes are formed due to weathering and persistent wind action. Fine sand gets accumulated in many deserts, and these form sand dunes. When this fine sand gets accumulated in the deserts, they form into sand dunes. You can see in the picture, all these are sand dunes. These are unstable hills of sand which move with strong winds. Again, whenever wind blows with great speed, these sand dunes are carried away by the wind. So these are unstable hills of sand which move with strong winds. And they form a number of shapes as they move and settle down. And this is about deserts. And these deserts, the fine dust, when it is blown beyond the desert limit and gets deposited on neighboring lands, it is called as loess. The sand is called as loess. It is yellow in color and it is very fertile. And the plains which are formed due to this loess, they are called as loess plains. Loess is in fact very fine loam which is rich in lime and extremely porous. And the plains formed by the deposition of this loess are called loess plains. That means these loess plains are porous and also yellow in color. Mostly these loess plains are found in northwestern part of China. Now, who is responsible for this desertification? That means how these deserts are being formed. How far human lifestyle is responsible for extension of deserts. Desertification is a social problem involving people at all stages as a cause and as victims also. That means if deserts are found more and more, for that human beings are the cause. That means they are responsible for the formation of deserts. And if more deserts are there, the people themselves are victims. So the desertification is not only a problem, it also makes the people as victims of desertification. The human activities like over-cultivation, over-grazing. If we cultivate more and more land, to bring more and more land under cultivation, what we do? We cut down the trees, and that leads to desertification. Overgrazing by the animals, deforestation, cutting down the trees in large number, and poor irrigation practices. All these human activities are responsible for desertification or extension of deserts. Once again I am repeating: over cultivation, overgrazing, deforestation, and poor irrigation practices. These are responsible for extension of deserts. Now, let us see how some of the human activities are causing damage to the lithosphere. Human activities like mining, agriculture, and dams. Suppose mining is there. We are extracting minerals from the mines. That is mining activity. What is the impact of mining on lithosphere? Mining disturbs and removes the rocks, ores, and minerals in the geosphere, and it leaves huge gaps or holes in the earth. And this further leads to earthquakes, because when the bottom of the earth, when the inner part of the earth is disturbed, or holes or gaps are formed in it, it leads to earthquakes in future. And the second one is impact of agriculture on lithosphere. Agriculture causes depletion of underground water. Because farmers use more and more groundwater for their agriculture, it leads to depletion of underground water, and also it causes soil pollution. That is the impact of human activities like mining, agriculture on the lithosphere. Now, I am going to give you, this is the end of the lesson. Now, I am going to give you homework. Read the remaining part of the lesson, underlining all the important points with pencil, and complete the blanks and MCQs in the material with the help of textbook. Learn and write the remaining 1 mark and 2 mark question answers without seeing.